Hey guys, Happy New Year. Hope you guys had a great year. In today's video, we are going to talk about mass storage in a computer. Just like humans, computers have two types of memories. They have a long-term memory and a short-term memory. In this video, we're really going to be talking about the long-term memory. We're not talking about the short-term memory, also known as, RAM, but we're talking about the devices that basically hold data when the computer is shut down. We're not talking about what happens when the computer is actually running. So I'm going to go over the two most common mass storage devices that we see in computers today, which is the HDD and the SSD. HDD stands for hard disk drive, and it's a electromechanical data storage device that stores and retrieves digital data using magnetic storage with one or more rigid, rapidly rotating platters coated with magnetic material. The platters are paired with magnetic heads, usually arranged on a moving actuator arm, which reads and writes data to the platter surfaces. Data is accessed in a random access manner, meaning that individual blocks of data can be stored and retrieved in any order. A SSD is called a solid-state drive and is a storage device that uses integrated circuit assemblies to store data persistently, typically using flash memory, and functions as a secondary storage in the hierarchy of computer storage. It is also sometimes called a semiconductor storage device, a solid-state device, or a solid-state disk, even though SSDs lack the physical spinning disks and movable read-write heads used in a hard disk drive. So let's take a closer look on the inside of a HDD. So as you can see that there's a disk inside, and when it is plugged in and there's power, the disks are spinning, and there's the silver arm that's on the edge of that disk begins to move back and forth from the periphery of the disk to the inside, back and forth, kind of reading and writing data using electromagnetism. Because of the mechanical parts, there's a couple of issues. So the first issue is there might be a latency issue between when you request the information to when you get it, because the mechanical parts have to actually get into place and do their thing. And it's not really instantaneous, although it happens pretty fast. The other thing is that it might be a little bit, the drive itself might be fragile, right? Because the arm itself, it actually sits nanometers away from the disk itself in order to use electromagnetism to read the data and write it. So imagine if you bump it the wrong way, or something happens where it throws off the distance between the arm and the disk, so it might mess that up. So that's something to consider. Now, taking a look at the SSD, you could see that the SSD does not have any mechanical parts, which makes it a little bit more efficient. Data is like almost instantaneously read from the flash memory on the chips, and does not rely on any movement of any parts. So it makes it more efficient in that way. So this might be a hard drive you might have to consider for very fast computing, something that you need right away, that you don't need any latency for, right? There's also some drawbacks to a SSD, let's say it gets damaged, too much heat or too much, maybe gets wet somehow, I don't know, and that data is harder to recover than from, let's say, a disk or something. Solid-state drives use newer technology to store data on instantly accessible memory chips. SSDs are faster, quieter, smaller, more durable, and consume less energy, while HDDs are cheaper and offer more storage capacity and easier data recovery if damaged. Now, there's also a third type of long-term memory, is called the optical disk drive. And, you guys just know that as a disk drive. It records memory onto CDs, DVDs, all that stuff. An optical disk drive uses a laser beam to read the data from the disk as it's spinning. It distinguishes between the pit and lands based on how the light reflects off the recording material. The drive uses the difference in reflectivity to determine the 0 and 1 bits that represent the data. This chart shows a quick comparison of the three and some of their pros and cons. Now, when you plug in these devices into your motherboard for mass storage, you're going to need something called a SATA cable. And the SATA cable is basically what allows you to talk with the motherboard. SATA, also known as Serial Advanced Technology Attachment, is a computer bus interface that connects host bus adapters to the mass storage devices such as hard disk drives, optical drives, and solid-state drives. So the way the cables communicate between the hard drive and the motherboard is they use a language called LBA, also called known as logical block addressing. And it says here, LBA is a common scheme used for specifying the location of blocks of data stored on a computer storage device, generally secondary storage systems such as hard disk drives. For your purposes, all you gotta know is LBA is the language that SATA speaks in order to communicate between the motherboard and the mass storage. There are also newer versions of SSD drives that actually plug in straight into the into newer motherboards, or if you have an older one, there might be a plug-in that you could actually use to plug the drive straight into the motherboard rather than use the SATA cables. Let's run through a quick example. So let's say you're working on your computer and you want to click save on a file. Your motherboard will now communicate using the SATA cables to your hard drive, and in this particular language called LBA, which basically allocates space on your hard drive for that file, right? It figures out how much it needs, and then like, okay, I'm gonna allocate this much space for this file. So on a disk, the smallest possible amount of data that could be stored is called a sector. On a solid state drive, these packets of bytes, the smallest amount of data, is called blocks. So the last thing you guys kind of have to be aware of when buying one of these mass storage devices is basically when you go to the store to buy one of these, let's say you're building a computer, you might go in and you look at a box and it gives you the capacity, right? Like how much storage it has. But then when you go home and you install it into your motherboard, it might read something else, right? And you guys don't have to worry about that. You don't have to freak out and say like, oh my God, they try to jip me. The difference is basically the manufacturer will write the capacity in one way, and then the hard drive or the BIOS will read the hard drive using the LBA language, so the 0 and 1 language. So that's where the difference is. What it may look different, but they're really the same.
Okay guys, I think that is it for this video. I hope you guys learned a little bit something about mass storage. And if you guys enjoy my content, please leave me a like and a follow. And make sure to follow me on my other social medias on my YouTube and Instagram. Search for crypto with the underscores. I'll probably end up doing more computer videos because people seem to like that and respond to that. But I'll also try to pepper in videos about cryptocurrencies and stuff like that. So I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.